Do you care yet?
Well, no,
70,000 workers in one state were fired because of vaccine mandates. When are you going to care? Do they all have to be trans?
Why would you accuse me? Of course I care about it.
Jimmy Dore has stepped in a little bit of shit by stepping to a revolutionary black activist, Cornel West, and he kind of got smacked the fuck down in a very humiliating way. How dare you try to school Cornel West with your bullshit class reductionism? You've been LARPing as a lefty for years now, and you think that you're going to own him because he isn't like appealing to your right-wing audience. I can't possibly say it as well as Cornel West said it, because Cornel West was just, it was beautiful.
He destroys him in seconds. It's a masterclass.
So let me just say this. So the point of running a third-party campaign is to offer an alternative to the two major parties, to bring together disaffected members of those parties, along with independents and others who feel alienated from the political system as it exists. And the best way to do this is by running on economic issues that unite us, but which neither major party is willing to address because they're both beholden to the same powerful corporate interests. The Democratic Party long ago abandoned the working class in favor of beating the drum on cultural issues, and now that's all the Democrats have to run on. The role of a third party is to focus not on the identity politics that divide us, but on core economic issues that unite us along class lines, like Christian Smalls did at Staten Island.
We gotta pause there. What?
Yeah.
He was unionizing.
That makes it come back to. He twists this whole thing about being trans people like twice or three times. It gets so weird.
Ben, you said you want.
Was he reading his statement?
Yeah, he does, because Jimmy can't do it. He has to read it. He doesn't know anything.
A script. It was a script. At least he needs to get like a teleprompter going.
That's the thing, is like he's trying to come at Cornel West, and he's not even prepared enough to actually look at the camera and talk directly, but he has to read from something he prepared earlier and still managed to make himself look like an inept fool up against Cornel West. It's a fascinating moment. Fascinating.
Well, I appreciate again the clarity and candor. What you have to say, we have profound disagreements, brother. When I organize around white supremacy, I'm not making some utilitarian calculation. I'm speaking as a black man who comes out of a tradition that's been terrorized and traumatized by white elites. And that does not in any way mean it takes me away from class issues. Class issues are crucial. Class issues are fundamental. But it doesn't mean that I'm putting up with white supremacy. One of the problems is that you get too many folk who want to talk class, and can't say a mumbling word about white supremacy, police brutality. Can't say a mumbling word hardly. Or when they do say it, you call it identity politics as if it's not connected to class. I'm hitting these head on. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to strikes. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to greedy bosses. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to obsession with profits and the needs not in any way being satisfied. But I'll never for a minute be silent or not raising my voice in terms of vicious treatment of black people, indigenous people, gay brothers, lesbian sisters, or trans. It's not an either or. And that's where you and I have a deep, profound disappointment. So if I see, for example, if I watch your show and I notice you hardly say a mumbling word about white supremacy because it's some kind of identity politics and I'm against it, but I don't want to talk about it. I only want to talk about what people hold in common. Well, black people are not going to hold it in common if you don't say a word about white supremacy, but maybe some of your white friends will. So who are you talking about? You're talking about in common.
Oh my God.
Are you talking about just the majority or what, my dear brother? I will never, ever in a million years not talk about vicious legacies of white supremacy, male supremacy, homophobia, transphobia, and others. But class will always be very much at the center.
Just ramping up too. Someone needed to finally say, when like people always use this as an excuse, like this is identity politics, this is identitarian or whatever. To some other people, it's just civil rights. It's just existing, right? Like I hate hearing that from so-called leftists all the time, that this is about identity politics. Oh, you won't shut up about this. Well, maybe because it affects their lives every single fucking day, you know?
Well, and Jimmy also knows that he can't possibly talk about white supremacy on his channel when it's fueled and funded by right-wingers who would lose their minds. They would start calling Jimmy Dore woke. So he absolutely can't. And this is a fundamental problem. They've been trying to merge a red and brown coalition for years. They've been talking about dropping the requirement for them to get that red-brown coalition requires that we stop talking about race and identity completely. So how could we ever be in league with someone like Jimmy Dore when he's saying that our issues fundamentally don't matter to him?
He is making this class reductionist case to the literal author of a book called Race Matters. I mean, there's a reason why Cornel West has been doing this for so fucking long, because he gets it. It's astonishing, like the audacity of Jimmy Dore here to think that this would go well. The caucasity of Jimmy Dore.
You can say that. It's okay. You can say the caucasity.
You got the pass. You got the pass, Mike.
Yes. This is what, like, before a lot of us directly moved away from Jimmy Dore and started to attack him, we were delicately trying to communicate this to him again and again and again and again, and he just doesn't get it. And it's not like he doesn't get it. I mean, he's an idiot. But he is purposefully doing this. He avoids these issues.
And, you know, I also think it's a bit of jealousy, because you do remember the People's Party was originally trying to run Jimmy Dore in 2024. They dropped Jimmy Dore and picked up Cornel West, who then later had to leave the People's Party because of all the allegations against the owner of that party. And then he went to the Green Party. But at the end of the day, the guy on that screen, Jimmy Dore, was supposed to be the candidate that everyone's talking about right now.
That is
he lost that. Oh yeah.
So yeah, it could definitely be something. Look, Ben just dropping tea. It's showing more of how Jimmy Dore caters to white supremacy. He caters to that racist audience, and he tries to attack. He does attack marginalized communities. When we don't speak about the marginalized communities, all of those are the ones who are suffering, right? In these policies that he claims to support and push, but a lot of the marginalized communities are hurt the most with those. Right. So if we deduce or we take away marginalized communities are talking about that, or we say that it's identity politics or whatever the case may be, that's a disservice.
You just sound like a Democrat, because that's all they have. So if you need
if to talk about the dignity of Black people in the face of vicious white supremacy makes me sound like a Democrat, you got the wrong earplug.
Okay.
You're not listening clearly. Because if you can't hear the critique of Wall Street, if you can't hear the critique of militarism, if you can't hear the critique of his foreign policy in Ukraine, and all you can hear when they talk about white supremacy is identity politics, then something's wrong with your earplug.
Look at Jimmy's face, by the way.
Something's wrong with you. We just have deep disagreement with that. But
it's disappointing.
It is what it is. You are profoundly disappointing in that sense. But I still love you, brother.
I still love you too. I still love you too. I know you. I know you. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm talking about having a campaign. Bernie caught on because he would always, if he was given a cultural question or an identity politics question, he would always bring it back to class and economics. And it doesn't. Well, here I was talking to one of Bernie's campaign managers, and this is what he said. Yes, I personally agree white supremacy is one of the causes, but if I lose two potential allies because they roll their eyes and stop listening before I get to their concerns, I've already lost. The civil rights advancements, women's rights, the environmental movement, they didn't happen because people like my dad voted Democrat because that stuff mattered to them. It happened because Democrats appealed to them on economic issues, and a lot of the Democrats they voted for because of economics also happened to vote for that other stuff, and it doesn't work in the inverse. So I'm just giving that to you.
No, I understand. But you can see again how I disagree. Keep in mind, bro. Civil rights movement was not because of white folk doing X or Y. It was because there was a social movement led by Black people in the South that was multiracial, but led primarily by Black folk. And neither party would have done anything without that social movement.
100% right. You're 100% right. And I love to hear you talk about all that stuff, and that's good for a radical Black activist who's representing his community. But I'm just trying to impress upon you that there's better ways to run a presidential campaign. And so that
why the
the caucasity, brother. Listen, I need you all to vouch for me for 1 second because there's a lot of white people who think I don't have white friends. And I like to consider all of you white friends.
We are his white friends.
Yes, we are friends.
Yes. I love
yes, I'll use my white voice for this one. Yeah.
But this is the greatest example of white supremacy and I mean, for the nerve of him to try to lecture Cornel West and then to minimize the fight for liberation to being a radical black activist, looking out for our community. No, Negro, I'm sorry, you're not even good enough to be a Negro, Jimmy Dore. I would call you what you are, but Black issues have blessed every single corner of this country, and I would argue this planet. Black Americans specifically, what we got in the Civil Rights Act blessed white women. Affirmative action blessed white women. We blessed the LGBTQ fight. So there's literally nothing about the Black fight, the radical tradition of Black people, that's ever limited to the Black community. But he would not understand that because he himself, Jimmy Dore, is steeped in white supremacy, and it's shown right there in that clip right there.
And he does believe that he's above everything. I think that's his whiteness that plays a role in that, because you can't tell me Jimmy Dore stands for what everyone stands for, but cannot acknowledge marginalized communities' issues. What does he want it to look like? I'll tell you what he wants. He wants it to look quite white, and that is exactly what we need to stay away from. How are people listening to this man? Ben, you've called it years ago, and they tried to tear you down. I'll never forget it. They tried to tear you down on when it was Twitter, okay? In those Twitter streets, they tried to come for you addressing this. Yeah. And so now, what do people have to say? He's outright with it. What are people going to say now?
We call this out. Jimmy Dore has been running for me. If anybody wants, he's been running for me since 2016. Right. I called him out in 2016 because he has I would give him something. At least he has finally grown a spine enough to address a Black man the way he always attacks Black women. So I called him out in 2016 for how he talks to Black women. He has been hiding from me ever since. That said, this is something that we have called out about his character. We called it out with the what was that? Force the Vote. We knew that was a sham from the beginning, not because the idea was bad so much, but the person behind it, Jimmy Dore, who has shown us he is exactly who we said he was years ago. And I have this kind of passion about it, because he was centerpiece in the fracture that fractured the left 2 years ago. We really fell apart as an online cohesive movement because of this clown. And now he has the unmitigated gall and the caucasity to try to speak to Dr. West that way. No, we're not doing that in 2024.
And also, because you brought up Force the Vote, this is somebody who has basically tried to draw the line when it comes to Medicare for all. Every single one of us here support Medicare for all, but then he went on to support the candidate that did not support Medicare for all in 2020, and now he supports RFK, who doesn't even support a fucking public option. And so then the government finally, for the first time in my life, experiments with free healthcare. They give us the vaccines. What does he do? He poo-poos that and says later on in this interview that is the biggest issue of his lifetime, the vaccines.
In that discussion with RFK, he doesn't push back half as nearly as much on the healthcare topic as he is here with Cornel West about white supremacy. It is the idea that he built his career or that one of his big issues is Medicare for all, and RFK doesn't support it, and you're interviewing him and you barely push back on that, yet hear about white supremacy. This is the big issue. That really gets you affected. Come on. That's
where I draw the line.
That's the hill. That's the hill he's willing to die on. That's the
right.
Hill.
I haven't seen that part
for
yet.
a Black radical activist, that's great. That's honey. But for someone who's trying to appeal to a wide swath of people, disaffected Republicans, independents, people, that's a death for that campaign. That's my opinion. That's just
we'll have to see. But keep in mind, though, brother, that one, I've never ever said that all of the followers of Brother Trump are fascists. I said he's a neo-fascist Pied Piper. His followers, 1 out of 8 went with Bernie, 1 out of 12 went with Barack Obama. He's got a heterogeneous, diverse group. And I can speak my language of truth and justice as it connects to capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, male supremacy, transphobia, whatever it is. And there's going to be some people who listen, and there's going to be some people who don't. But this is not just a question of political calculation and Machiavellian reflection, brother. This is about the quest for truth and justice. You got to be real. You got to be authentic. I'm not listening to consultants who tell me to use this particular
so
kind of
good.
language with this group and this kind of language with that group. That is the essence of managerial bourgeois politics.
Oh my
I
God.
reject it.
It's amazing how Cornel West throws that back in his face. Like
Yeah.
how Jimmy Dore is the one where it's like, listen to the consultants, like in his mind, like the consultants that he would listen to. Whereas like Cornel West is being authentically himself.
Are you playing Jimmy Dore's version of
This is off his site,
interview?
so does it come up
Okay,
again?
because I didn't realize the title at first. Cornel West does 45-minute commercial for Joe.
Oh my god! I just noticed that too.
Wow. What a baby. What a baby. Holy
Oh
shit.
my god.
I know that
God.
they want that as clickbait. They want that to be this is what they want, right? This is what he wants. Okay, clickbait, whatever. But coming at Cornel West like this, now we did come at Cornel West a few times when in the last few months. You can see it on our Lay's page. We read him right because we like to see him in his natural element, and this is his natural element. This is what he does. He makes sure he doesn't have to do much because he's been doing this work for so long. Jimmy Dore has been sitting here. He's one of I like to call these. I say other things, but this ain't that type of show. But men with microphones, these people with microphones who sit here and they will just be on the mic, and all they have is this to offer. There's nothing else. But who he's speaking to actually fought the fight. Who he's speaking to has actually walked the walk. Who he is speaking to has gone through this. He just didn't get up one day and feel like maybe I should start saying I'm for the people and get on this mic and not be for people and start promoting all things that are not helpful to the movement, but still say I'm a part of the movement. How can you trust that? So I don't know what he thought he was going to get in this moment.
When Cornel starts ranting about like how Jimmy only cares about vaccines and other nonsense,
Yeah.
he just rips him fucking apart.
All right, let's try
Yeah.
this.
Injectable treatments be mandated or coerced. Individuals should be allowed to protect and heal themselves in a manner that best supports their medical spiritual beliefs. So I just wanted I don't understand why you aren't outraged by that. Do you share the sentiment of the Black Caucus of the Green Party, and have you talked to them?
Well, one thing, it's good to have a Green Party where you have a variety of different voices that are clashing and the tensions are very real. I think there's no doubt that the pharmaceutical company has played a disproportionate role in shaping public policy. I think the kind of concerns that you and RFK Jr. and others have certainly are well grounded in that sense. On the other hand, we know there's been a whole host of vaccines in regard to other kinds of illnesses that are much more effective. The question becomes making sure, and one of the things I want to do, I want to have a truth commission to find out exactly what was the level of corruption that took place during these years, be able to see not just the text, we know the books are out there, but to have a truth commission so that we can see what voices were marginalized, what voices were pushed aside, and make sure it never happens again. I resonate with the spirit of what my Green Black brothers and sisters are saying, but the Green Party itself does allow this kind of disagreement and so on. But I'll say this though, brother, I know I got to go, but I must say, see, this is where you and I do in some ways live in different worlds, because as crucial and as important as the issue of vaccines and the COVID situation was, when you say that's probably the most important issue in your lifetime or in the last 25 or 30 years, in light of all the wars, in light of what Palestinians are going through, in light of what workers are going through, 63% of them are living paycheck to paycheck, in terms of all the vicious attacks of the police and the murders and so forth, and yet this vaccine issue is the most important thing. I say, okay, that's my dear brother Jimmy. He's got a right to raise his voice. I'm not going to in any way push it away, but I just live in a different world. As important as vaccines have been, if I had another chance, I'd be leaning much more with the Black Caucus. But when I think of the weightiest issues, vaccines does not come immediately to mind. It just doesn't. That's the kind of world we live in, brother.
Okay.
Maybe I spend,
Well, here it is. The Black business owners collapsed by 41%. Black business because of lockdowns. Do you care yet?
Well, no,
70,000 workers in one state were fired because of vaccine mandates. When are you going to care? Do they all have to be trans? When are you going to care about these workers? What are you going to care about? What are you going to care about this?
They have to be trans for me to care.
You don't care. You don't care. Why don't you care about this?
Why would you accuse me? Of course I care about it.
You're saying it's not important.
I didn't say it wasn't important. I said it was not the most fundamental issue in my lifetime the last 30 years.
Forced medical experiments. Forced medical experiments that the scheme.
Where is the nuance?
Oh my God!
Where is the complexity?
So you missed this story, and you're not interested in getting it right.
You agree with Jimmy Dore.
So you missed this story, and you're not interested. Well, Dr. West, I wish you the best. You know I love you. You know I support
you and your precious wife and your family. You stay strong, though, brother.
Okay, I wish you all the best. I love you. Thanks for coming on. I really do wish you all the best. And I just wish you had a clearer message to reach people, but you don't. It's muddled and it's a loser.
That's where he cuts it.
What do we call this?
I support you so much, Dr. West, that I'm going to have the last thing that's said at the end of this 45-minute interview is calling your campaign a loser. Unbelievable.
As a brother, as a mentor, I don't wish anything but the best for Dr. West. But I hope that this is very clear to him. We've been trying to put Dr. West up on who Jimmy Dore is for some time. And I hope that this interview really solidifies very clearly, not only in his mind, but the mind of everyone who has ever had any question about whether or not Jimmy Dore is leftist. He is not. He's a conservative. Whether or not Jimmy Dore is a part of as an ally, no, he is an enemy of progressivism. He is an enemy of the LGBTQIA community. He is the enemy of the Black community. And he is supported by those people who have targeted every single one of us, y'all. His audience is made up by people who would see every one of us on this screen put on the wall. And so, I not to make such a big deal about it, but I think this is the apex of his arrogance. And I hope everyone can really clearly see it now, but maybe not.
It's just crazy to me how people just don't see that, how this is damaging, how damaging this is. And this person is spreading misinformation. This ain't it. This ain't it.
Yeah, forced medical experimentation. And I love how, like, when Cornel West said, yeah, I would set up a truth commission, because of course, like, there's no harm in that, because there's nothing to hide. Jimmy Dore's like, yes, that's going to expose all this, because Jimmy Dore, basically, he got so much growth on his channel by doing anti-vaccine misinformation. This is like the go-to issue. And he's still, even though the vaccine stuff has kind of like, it's not as popular, people have kind of moved on, he's still trying to play the greatest hits, because that was like peak Jimmy Dore views a couple of years ago. So that's why this is his number one issue, because a lot of his audience came to him at that time, a lot of right-wingers, right? So pushing vaccine misinformation is just like, if that's not your number one issue for Jimmy Dore, he can't support you. Unfortunately, he's going to have to support Trump or DeSantis.
Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Or DeSantis.
What he's trying to do is make Cornel West seem like, oh, see, if you're not going to parrot what I'm saying, then I'm going to paint you as the villain. You're actually against Black people if you're not going to legitimize what I'm saying. And that's why he brought up that article. And it's ridiculous. I mean, he's done this multiple times, and people need to see that this is the tactic. It's the GOP Fox News playbook, right? And he's done it again and again. And if you think he's a leftist, then I don't know what to say at this point.
No one can think that at this point. I can't.
There can't be many.
People do. And there are people who are like him who claim that they're. I see this more and more often through the years too. The last couple of years, where a lot of people who used to be called leftists, and it used to be more of a general understanding. Hey, look, marginalized communities, fine, okay. Now people are like, yeah, no. No, now you guys are doing too much. You're trying to title things. But they're the ones that are calling this identity politics. They don't want us to actually get specific and actually talk about who's being targeted, why they're being targeted, why it's problematic, who's not receiving care, or what the real issues that are going on. And it usually be white people. I don't understand why. Why? You say that you're an ally. How can you be an ally in this manner? How?
There's no war but class war. No war but class war. Come on, we have to do the one thing I want. Like
Jimmy Dore's entire channel, his whole thing exists for right wingers to say, "Look, a leftist is saying it too."
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
That's the whole channel. That's it.
Yep.
And that pays well. folks.
Okay,
Yeah.
it pays, baby. We talked about this. It pays to have right-wing talking points. It pays to be a black person like Candace Owens, to shift, pivot, right up into the white supremacy talking points as a black person and say, look, this, and they're gonna say, look, she's black. Right, and Jimmy Dore is the person that look. He still
Dave Rubin's
considers
gay,
himself
or
like a
any-
leftist. Yeah,
Dave
and they
Rubin's
will go and this is what they do. But it pays. Listen, it pays to sell your soul.